Hi guys, it's Michelle here. I am going to very soon do a video on my dream journal that I showed you previously, and what you will have noticed maybe is that there's lots of tea dyed and coffee dyed papers in here. And so knowing that last time I showed that a few people had questions, and I remembered, and I'm very sorry, that I promised a tutorial on what I do, and I kind of forgot with Christmas and life and dramas and things like that happening. So this is what I do. Super simple. Tea or coffee, whichever you prefer, whichever you've got. As I said, I don't think there's any right way or wrong way. You just have a play and find what you like, and then that will be what's right for you. When I had a play previously, I dunked some plain white tags that I made into a whole bunch of different things. So this one here is tea bags, and that was pure chamomile flowers, and it gave a really light and very subtle colour. And then I did some instant coffee. I did 3 heaped spoons there, as you can see. I dipped the tag into the mixture, and then you can see possibly there's a little variation. That's because I also did some ribbon, and I just put the ribbon on top, and that gave me that variation there. There's some tea bags, English breakfast. That was the colour it gave me. A cheap box brand of tea bags, just 3 of them, and then that was 6 natural green teas. So the difference between them is shades. It's only shades of browns and possibly a little bit more greeny in some of them. But the amount that you put in and the time that you leave it and what you use will just alter your colour. So just playing with what's in your cupboard will give you some variation and a bit of fun. So that was just something that I did just as a bit of an experiment. But what you do is, with your tea or coffee, whatever you've got and you want to use, make it. So make it up in some water and then let them soak. So in here I've got quite a few, 1, 2, 3, about 8 tea bags, and I'm very tactile, as you probably can see, and that's why I've got dirty hands. I get right in there. So when I dunked a completely white card like so, if I dip it in just slightly, I get a very slight change. If I leave it in there and soak it, I get a much darker colour. So depending on what you want to do with it will depend on how much colour you get. So as you can see, I've just made up a big pan with tea bags, thrown them all in here, let it steep so it gets a good colour going, and maybe I can show you how much colour I got there. So I've got quite a good darkness of colour there, and then of course you can put anything into it. You can leave it for as long as you want. The only thing to be aware of is, in terms of how long you leave it for, is if the paper's too fragile, it'll be quite delicate to get out. You have a good shot of having ripped it. So when I've dipped mine, I then will bring it out and put it onto some baking paper, and that can then either dry, it can dry outside in the sun, it can dry in your hot water cupboard, wherever you like, whatever you want, however you want to do it. I do a lot of baking, so I quite often bake mine in the oven, and that dries it and it just gives a different texture that I really like. I also use this colour tea towels because I get them really dirty, and then it doesn't matter if they change colour. So everything just gets dunked into the solution and then it gets baked. Occasionally I'll let things dry off outside, which I probably might just chuck all these outside today, and it's a beautiful day here. The only other thing I do is that I might just dip it in to get a bit of colour on it, and if I want something a bit different I might just do some splodges. It's not splodging very well, so I'll get some texture going like that with the tea bag. So different things give you different effects, and I just play away and do all sorts of different things like that. So tea, coffee, you can use instant coffee, you can use perked coffee, you can use your tea bags, you could make yourself a pot of tea, have your cuppa, and then once you finish put all the rest of it in with some water, stir it round. You can also, which I have done in the past, put all of these onto the paper, and when they dry they will have left a little square of tea dye, of stronger tea dye there, and then you can use the tea bags up as well. I put the tea into the worm farm, and then these little bags, once they're ripped open and cleaned out, you could use those for little projects as well. People do tea dye projects. I haven't quite figured out what they do with them, but one day I will. So once I've done that, I bake the paper. So what do I do with the paper? I wrote down I had to go and look up to get the different temperatures, so I've written them down for you. So watch the oven at all times. It's paper, it's going to burn. If you touch the paper to the element, it's going to catch fire. I always do, I mean, obviously in the kitchen, and I'm right by the sink, so I can have a quick dunk of any water that gets, dunk the paper into the water if it gets caught. I put mine up to a moderate oven, so which equals 350 Fahrenheit, 180 Celsius, gas mark 4, and I leave mine oven on. I have read other people who heat their oven up and then turn it off, and then so it's really a matter of how good you are at keeping an eye on not being distracted. If you've got young children around, it might be a good idea to turn it off. I haven't got young children around to distract me, so that's why I just keep mine on, and it makes it quicker. I leave the paper in for as long as it takes to dry and till it's got the colour I want. So that is just a matter of, you know, gouging how you like it. It's a bit like how you like your steak cooked. Just take care not to burn your paper, but also remember not to burn yourself. I usually do burn myself because I get very involved and make a mess. So please don't do that because it hurts. It's not a good idea. So that's what I would do with all my dunking. And then now I'll just show you. So what do I dye? This is what I dye. Anything and everything. All my scraps of paper, I quite often will just chop them up into little tags. So I've got the Tim Holtz little tag dye. And so I chop up lots of little tags and then I've dunked them in. So you get all sorts of variants of patterns and things. If you want a particular pattern, this probably isn't the technique for you. This is quite a loose and free thing, and perfection's probably not likely to happen. It hasn't happened for me anyway, so I just play with it. I love it. So I just am always surprised by what pattern comes out. Sometimes it's really subtle, sometimes it's darker. I love it. So I make tags, and then these are all my dunk tags. These ones have then been edged with gathered twigs distress ink. I love the colour with the tea dye. I think it looks really cool. I've got some textured card that I've made up and dunked in. That more greeny shade is probably the tea. That's probably the coffee. Some just paper junk stuff. I found a pad of this at the op shop, so I dyed a whole lot of these little note things to make them look like they were vintage. There's some craft paper, a bit more normal on the inside, but then that's the back piece, and that was up to the heat, so that's given it all that different texture and pattern there. That's like a ledger, 1, 2, 3 there, so if you haven't got or can't bring yourself to rip up an old ledger, I just tea dye and make my own. There's some doodle paper, just really light scratch paper, but that's got a really neat pattern on it. Doilies, done dark and light. As I said, all sorts of effects that you just need to let happen. This was quite a new music book that I found at the charity shop, and so I dunked this in just to give it a bit more colour because it wasn't rich enough. The same thing with book pages. If you've got a book that's too new and you want to make yourself an old book, that's what you can do with that as well. Here's some more of that debit and credit paper, and that's on had a really major dunk, and some darkening up an old planner from 2011 that nobody wanted. That's just plain old refill paper, plain music paper, and that is some scrapbook paper. So, and that's just had some patterns come through there. So that is just some of the things that I do with my tea dye and my paper. And then quite often what I'll do is I just make them all up into books. As I said, here's my dream journal, so I'll give you a tour of that shortly. One more thing that I do, when I do the baking, paper and I put it in the oven, I get more patterns. So all the baking paper after a while starts to get really rich colours, and if you're into the brown colouring you will quite like it. So I just keep it going until it's rich enough, and then if I need something I can use that for collage or just putting in a book. I've made a couple of books up, so I'll show you a few of the things that I've done with some of the weird papers that I've made. So as I said, there's the oven, that's the measurements. I'll put the temperature measurements, yeah, so I'll put those here, so hopefully you can see those nice and easily, and when I get myself cracking and get my blog post up I will put that on there as well. As I said, lots of variations of colour, lots of fun, and have fun with it. That's all you need to do. Just dip it, dunk it, play with it, enjoy it. Thanks for visiting, guys. See you soon. Bye now.